Hello there, Survival Gaming. So I'm going to briefly show you what to expect during a checkride or a practical test to get authorization to land at Juno. So most of the stuff you might already be familiar with on the list, so I'll just go through some of the stuff you may not be. First we'll go with a rectangular course. So a rectangular course is basically a traffic pattern in a square. So we'll use this section right over there to the right as our example. So I'm going to just fly forward here. Forward, forward, forward. Turn. Forward, 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 right? Nothing special. We wait until we're out a little bit because you want to try and maintain the same approximate distance. And then we'll turn again. And there it is on our right hand side. Still. Keep going. We'll eventually get to a point that we want to turn, and then we will turn. So that's a rectangular course going around like that. Alright, and then we have turn around a point. So a turn around a point would be wanting to keep one particular point on one particular side, so we'll use that dirt pile that's over there. So we'll just kind of turn. Oops, slowed down just a little too much. Just kind of turn and keep it on our right hand side. Now the difference is with this one, you're more kind of lazily listing. And none of this needs to be the FAA standards because this is just a stupid game. So you don't need to maintain a speed, you don't need to maintain some sort of crazy heading, you don't need to maintain altitude. The primary purpose is to just make sure that the person who is obtaining authorization is able to keep authority over the aircraft. Alright, so that's that. S-turn is just doing these snaking things. A serpentine along a straight line. So it's essentially a turn around a point, like right here. Which that's the point. And then you could say, oh, okay, what's the next point? Alright, the point is going to be right over there. And then one more right over there. So that's an S-turn. Pretty straightforward. Approach to hover. That's probably pretty obvious for most folks. So you're going up on an approach, and while you're doing your little approach, you decide, you know what, I don't want to actually land. I just want to kind of hover. So it's basically moving forward and how to stop. Jeez, stop already. There we go. So that's basically that. And then you have, what would the other one be? Approach to surface. So approach to surface would be where you actually go on an approach, and then you land. Alright, so we'll just land right over here real quick. So that's approach to land, and then takeoffs. So there's a couple different takeoffs. Real life, there's a bunch of them because you can slowly increase throttle and all that stuff. Arma, unless you have a throttle control like with the hands-off throttle and stick, you're basically going to almost always do a max takeoff. But here's the thing, so there's something called a dynamic rollover, which I don't know if this is intentionally simulated in ARMA or not, but it would be where your skid is, your skid or a wheel or something is stuck in the terrain or stuck on an object in the ground, which will cause you to slightly roll kind of like that. And when you take off, if you try to do a max takeoff, one of your skids, your wheels won't go anywhere, and you'll end up just colliding with the ground, rolling over. So you have a slight takeoff, which is the recommended one. You just gingerly go off the ground, just to verify that you're not going to get stuck. And then there's max takeoff, where you just hit throttle and go straight off without doing anything else. So there's that. For a go-around is basically you're coming in for a landing somewhere, and while you're making your approach, you decide that you don't like it. So while you're making it in, there's something wrong with it. It's basically an aborted landing. And you just go back. You take off again. And now you do your either turn around a point, basically, or a rectangular course. You go around, and then you'll do another landing. For our second landing, we'll do a rolling landing. So rolling landing is essentially just where your skids, the helicopter is still moving forward, and you just kind of slide. You can't do a rolling takeoff really, even on the wheeled ones. It's kind of difficult. So that's pretty much that. Reconnaissance, so high reconnaissance would be observing the ground and the area from a high altitude. I would say high would be 250 and above. I don't remember what FAA is. I think it's like 300 and above. Low reconnaissance would be anything, I would say, at 100 or so, because you could see more terrain details when you're below 100 as opposed to above it typically. That's pretty much that. And then ground recon is, you're on the ground and you're checking the area. So this whole reconnaissance thing is just to see what hazards may be in the area. Let's see, rapid deceleration, pretty straightforward. Pull back, yank back, descend a little bit, or at least decrease throttle to prevent yourself from going up too high. And that's that. It's also a quick stop. Approaches, so you've got a steep approach, which is where you're descending pretty quickly, and at the very end you kind of flare. Flare would just, so your descent would be decreasing throttle, and then right before the end you increase throttle just before touchdown. That'll prevent you from colliding with the ground. So descending, flare, touchdown. Let's see, a shallow approach. Kind of did a shallow approach just a moment ago. Shallow approach is where you're taking where you're landing, and you're just kind of slowly, sort of progressively descending upon where you wanted to land. Let's see, slope landing. So let's see if we could find a hill somewhere close by, probably over here. So a slope landing is important. Just so you have a better idea of how to keep an eye out on the terrain that you're landing on. Ooh, here we go. So when you want to land on a slope, you don't want to land with the slope. You don't want to land with the slope because, hopefully this is enough of a slope to demonstrate it, but you don't want to land with the slope because you will slightly slide, and you kind of saw it there. And then when you take off, you'll end up kind of scooting forward like that, right? Instead, what you want to do is you want to land going along the slope. So something more like this. Now again, when you go to take off, you're probably going to go in the direction of the slope. That's why when you take off, you don't want to do a max power takeoff. You actually want to do a slight takeoff where you kind of hover at the same time you kind of lean against it, and then you can take off. That way, if you have any structures like a HESCO or a building or a flagpole or whatever, you don't hit it. Confined space landing. So pretty straightforward how to land in a confined space. So for this, we'll just go over here, land. Now auto hover is very helpful for this. When you're in an open area, you can pretty much get away with not having to be precise. When you're in a confined space, however, you do want to use auto hover, and you want more. So there you are. That's that. And then you take off. Straightforward, pretty simple. Approaches for that you can do in a confined space. You could do a steep landing, you could do a shallow landing, you can do a relatively normal landing, you could do the auto hover landing. Do whatever is best for that situation, whatever you're the most comfortable with. Now whenever you're doing a landing, you want to avoid being up in the air really high and then descending. That's just going to take more time, and on our server, on the survival gaming server, that just means more time for an NPC bandit to attack you, right? So avoid that. Let's think. What else? Engine failure. So engine failure, I don't care about you getting shot or whatever. That's not what this is for. This is, you're going in for a landing, and all of a sudden, when you go to hit auto hover to make it a little easier on yourself or whatever, you turn off the engine, you're going to start falling out of the sky pretty quickly. So what do? Just hit Q or whatever your control is to turn the engine back on. That's it. So you recognize it early, you can fix it early. Yeah, it's a non-issue. Let me think, is there anything else? Rectangular courses, turns, go around, approaches, hovers, approach to the surface, max takeoff, rapid deceleration, or quick stop, steep approach, shallow approach, slope landing, slope takeoff, confined areas, approach, takeoff, landing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The idea with this Checkride is to demonstrate that you have complete authority over the helicopter. It isn't to demonstrate that you are a competent pilot, that you can fly, or to help train you for a specific situation. It's only to show me that, you know what, if you land here at Juno, you're not going to crash the helicopter. And that's it. Bye.